Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7 by 7 So, fan films are a bit of a tricky topic here at Star Wars 7 by 7 because if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that we don't really cover fan films on here. Basically, the topical matter of the podcast extends to the canon content of Star Wars, and, we're lucky in the sense that the podcast itself didn't start until after the rebooting of the canon under the auspices of the Disney ownership back in April of 2014. And the podcast itself started in July of 2014. So that meant, hey, we can look at the canon fresh, which was a really awesome opportunity, not just for the podcast, but even for me personally as a Star Wars fan. That being said, obviously, fan films do not really apply to that topic of conversation. I mean, as far as we go from Star Wars story material, we're either looking at the new canon or we're looking at things that had previously been canon and seeing how they are being affected by the new stories that are being told. But there is certainly a rich history of Star Wars fan films, and Lord knows I've enjoyed my share of them. I mean, you can go all the way back to Hardware Wars, and, there's nothing like that one on God's Green Earth. And really, fan film awards, as far as that goes, that got started in 2002, and it was Kevin Rubio's Troops that took the big prize back then. That, of course, if you ever came across it, was the Cops parody with troopers on Tatooine answering various domestic calls, and it plays in to the events of the original trilogy and A New Hope in specific. So, I mean, that was great fun. And they did the awards for a number of years. In fact, all right, so let's do the math while I'm here. 2002 through 2011. So 10 years in a row, there were fan film awards. They weren't always called the Star Wars Fan Film Awards. It was under a different name here and there. And it wasn't until May of 2012, the folks that were then operating the Force.net reached out and found out that Lucasfilm was going to be discontinuing the Star Wars Fan Film Awards until such point as they could, find new ways to recognize the contributions of the fan community. Little did we know at the time that the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney was being negotiated at that time, or at least it was, wheels in motion. Maybe the official details weren't being handled right at that time, but, it was October of 2012 that the sale actually took place. So that there had to be lawyers haggling over the details for a number of months in advance. And Lucasfilm did bring them back in 2015 and 2016. I've looked for information about what might have happened in 2017, but it doesn't seem like there's any record of A, the fan films actually happening, but B, even the acknowledgement that, hey, we did them the last 2 years and we're not doing them in 2017. So I don't know what happened there, but if you have a line on that, then by all means, drop me a line and let me know what the deal was, and I'll add it in an addendum on tomorrow's episode, or the next day, or the next day, whenever you happen to get in touch with me about it. Anyway, so now they've recently announced that the Fan Film Awards are on again, and the entry period has started. The submission period has begun, and you have until mid-September to do so. And so, hey, time to get cracking. But the thing of it is that they're actually doing this bigger and better than they have before. In the last 2 years that they had it, in 2015 and 2016, they only had 7 categories of film awards. And, hey, that's great, but, that's also comparatively limited. This time, they have 4 overarching categories, and they have, oh God, I had the math in my head. What's 18 plus 16? 34. 34 overall categories where there are going to be winners announced. So going from 7 awards to 34 awards, that's pretty spectacular. And so good on you, Lucasfilm, for that one. That's really remarkable. They've split up film into long film and short film, and there are 8 categories in each of them. And then there's also, new to the Fan Film Awards, a visual art category and a photo art category, and there are 9 individual categories within each of those areas as well. But of all 34 of those awards, you and I only have the chance to influence 4 of them. Exactly 4 of them. And so here's how it works. This is the demystifying portion of things. So there's a panel of judges, and of course they're not going to tell us who the judges are, because then, it's like not telling anybody who the jurors are, because then you're going to go knocking on their hotel room door going, hey, so-and-so is innocent, rah, rah, right? So same kind of thing. They're going to start, campaigning away. And so, yeah, we don't want that to happen. So 30 out of the 34 awards are going to be judged by a group of unknown judges, and there is a laundry list of criteria that's posted on the Fan Film Awards website and in all the supplementary material in more detail. And so judges are going to pick winners for all 30 of those 34 categories. And then the audience choice ones, there's an audience choice award in each category. And what's going to happen is the judges are going to score all the entries within a category, within best short film, best long film, best visual art, and best photo. And out of their measurement on the criteria, the top 25 entries, and it doesn't matter whether they're animation or comedy or stop motion, whatever the case may be, like doesn't matter. It's just whatever the top 25 highest scoring entries based on the judges' criteria in each of those 4 sections. Those are going to be the ones that we're presented with as audience choice options, and those are the ones that we're going to get to vote on in, I believe, November is when that audience vote gets to happen. It's not like I don't have a computer right next to me to actually give you specific dates and so forth. So September 17th is the final day for submission, and then November 2nd through November 13th is when you and I will get to do the Audience Choice Awards. So if you have any interest in submitting, then by all means do. If you love Star Wars and you are any kind of visual artist, whether it is visual art or photo or video, whatever your thing is, by all means, if you have a passion for Star Wars, then get your particular art of choice into this Fan Film Awards. If for no other reason than because we're not going to have a Star Wars film in December of 2018, but the winners of this contest are going to be announced in December of 2018. So, hey, if we can't get an official Star Wars movie, then, maybe the next best thing is to get a whole selection of fan film awards that we can all check out. All the details are on the Lucasfilm official website or the Star Wars official website, starwars.com/star-wars-fan-awards. It's not just fan film awards, it's now fan awards because, photos and visual art and whatnot. And that is going to do it for today's episode of the podcast, with the exception of one last thing. So first of all, I want to say thanks to everybody who has had such kind words to say about me hitting the 1,500 episode milestone. I really appreciate it. And also for those of you who have said kind words about me featuring the 501st and the Rebel Legions on that episode too, it's my pleasure to do it. So, thank you very much for those kind words as well. And I have not been the greatest correspondent on replying to some of those comments either. So I just want you to know that I have seen them. It's been rather crazy last few days, and I will be getting back to you in various comments places on YouTube and on Facebook and wherever you might be listening to and commenting on this podcast. So thank you very much for your patience with me. It is, after all, a one-man show, aside from, of course, Indy, the studio manager, who you saw a couple of days ago. And he's not really very good with the keyboard. He's polydactyl, actually, but, it doesn't help after all. Anyway, that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, wherever you happen to be consuming this podcast. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.